Hello, this is from Caracas, and I am Ray Gomez. On social integration and the formation of a human being through the learning of foreign languages and cultures in Venezuela, I will talk with Professor Rosalba, principal of the Pushkin Institute.
How are you, Professor?
Thank you very much for the invitation to the program, an excellent option to speak of all these necessary topics.
Thank you for being with us. Teaching and learning language and culture for the integral formation of the personality. How to explain that to our audience?
En este nuevo mundo multipolar y pluricéntrico que se está construyendo.
In this new multipolar and pluricentric world which is being built, it is necessary to train the woman and the new man. For what? For a vision of a world where foreign languages, along with the use of the internet and new information and communication technologies, are necessary for the full exercise of participatory and leading democracy, which is the model promoted by the Commander Chavez since the beginning of the Bolivarian Revolution. But it is the model that marks the worldwide history, and what we are observing with the birth of initiatives like the Silk Road, the new Eurasian economic space, or from African countries is South-South integration, and from Venezuela, the integration with the ALBA-TCP through UNASUR and Petrocaribe.
The regional integration organizations.
There are different mechanisms of regional integration, both supranational, transcontinental. Even every day we are closer to each other, and to be able to access the information, to knowledge, to the construction of a new man and the new woman of the new world. This new world of which President Chavez spoke already in the year 2009, but also Mao Zedong spoke as the third world in the year 74. And this new man, this new woman, who need essentially that the Venezuelan state incorporate the formation of foreign languages in addition to the mother tongue.
What is the situation that Venezuela is currently experiencing in this area?
Currently in Venezuela, different initiatives are being led. Unfortunately, the teaching of foreign languages is still privatized. Still, the idiosyncrasies of Venezuelan citizens is considered a luxury to learn a foreign language or a class climb, and it's not like that. Foreign languages are a universal right where we are asking the Venezuelan state, the Bolivarian government, the need to make it accessible to all citizens.
To socialize it, to generalize it.
Because it's still the exclusive right of few. The learning of foreign languages. We from the Russian Venezuelan Language Institute Alexander Pushkin, we are really promoting a whole policy of teaching the Russian language at this time for being also one of the strategic and fundamental ally countries of Venezuela.
There's something that has always caught my attention. At the moment of introducing the Pushkin Institute, it is not presented as a language institute in short terms, but as an institute of language and culture. Why?
It is important to understand that speaking a language is also to speak of cultures, and then we do not speak of a single culture, but of the cultures of the different people that can be expressed through a language. Language is a tool to communicate thought, and thought has no nationality. Thinking has no languages. Thinking is universal, but it needs this tool to communicate with others. Then we from our institution are talking of culture, not like a fact of the fine arts, but of the idiosyncrasies of people. Then we open the concept of culture by cultural manifestations to idiosyncrasies of people.
Even the political culture.
It is part of the idiosyncrasies of people, a village and many villages. When the idiosyncrasies of people are understood and articulated, then we are talking about an intercultural linguistic meditation that allows understanding among people and also among states.
When somebody has deficiencies in this process of interculturality, what happens? What risks does he or she submit?
Bolivar said, ignorance is a blind instrument of destruction. When we lack the handling of foreign languages, we lack the opportunity to understand other people. When there is that need, the first thing we do is to understand that the other is our enemy because we do not know. Because we do not understand, then that's when the people begin to divide. So we talk about communication as a matter of security and defense of the nation.
Because we also take the risk of being dominated.
Because also we're on the risk of being dominated, because when we have ignorance, we don't have information and we're not able to communicate. We're in a state of vulnerability. We're in a state of total helplessness because we cannot even not only understand that, perhaps for a Russian person, the smile means the state of happiness of the soul.
The mysterious Russian soul.
Yes, the great Russian soul, the state of happiness of the soul. It's a pure feeling, but for us, the smile means to Latin Americans, it means precisely our first way of presentation, of welcoming. They see, I want to know you. Then there is a differentiation, cultural idiosyncrasies that by ignorance of it, between cultures and among people, then we think Russians are bad because they don't smile at us, and then the Russians think that the West is smiling all the time, that Russians have to be careful because Latin Americans can betray them. So what is it? There is a topic of understanding cultures.
And that is where the Institute goes.
And that is where the Institute is directed. If we know and understand each other, we can then unite with the same objective, with the same purpose, which is precisely the union of people on the global level. Friendship, true friendships, solidarity, and union between people. And then there raises not only the humanitarian subject, but also the theme of the articulation regarding national and international production. So we're talking about economics, politics, of all the expressions that drive us to the development of humanity.
Of a humanity that even goes more and more integrated into blocks, but blocks that are not, let's say, traditional blocks of the West, but already accept into mixing with cultures of the East and are thinking about economic strategies, as you said.
That's right. President Chavez in the year 2009, in his master class dictated at the Friendship of the People, Russian University in Moscow, Russian Federation, he spoke at that time of his theory. At that moment, we are building the new multinuclear world. Different nucleus are developing these blocks that, as you were saying, in different parts of the world, this multinuclear world passes progressively. It is the prelude to the new multipolar and pluricentric world. We are talking at this time of the multinuclear world. 2018 is the era of the multinuclear world. That's why we look at big projects that China is leading, as for example the Silk Road. From Russia and the Russian countries, which is the Eurasian economic space, this birth and the integration of Africa into this great global network, which is not far from Latin America, since the Russian project, the construction of the large rail network that will connect the Latin American continent with the rest of the world. with Russia through the Bering Strait at the railway level, so the new multipolar and pluricentric world is still walking, still in gestation, and it requires integration and understanding the management of the different foreign languages, of the comprehension of all the cultures. So in order to not having a biased vision, neither for anti-Russian nor Arab-speaking countries. Then we talk about cultures that are also associated with the language.
And there is one of the missions of the Pushkin Institute, I guess, that has lately been dedicated to sign cooperation agreements with state institutions in order to linguistically prepare the professionals who will contribute to the socio-economic development of the country and this region likewise.
Quisiera comenzar por decir, en Alicia y el País de las Maravillas, hay un fragmento que habla.
Yes, I would like to begin by saying, in Alice in Wonderland, there is a fragment where the cat says to Alice, "Here you have 3 paths. If you don't know which to take, anyone could be good." But we from the Alexander Pushkin Russian Venezuelan Language and Cultural Institute, we're just teaching people, sensitizing them, making them aware of why it is important to learn a foreign language.
Would it be a crazy idea, for example, to think that the economic heart of this country for decades that has been the oil industry now is interested in the study of Russian language? Would that be crazy?
It becomes necessary that the different entities of the state take greater awareness regarding the importance of teaching the Russian language, mainly not only in the sector of the oil industry, but also in the military sector. But much more important for us to stop being a mono-producer country with a high touristic potential from the tourism sector. Tourism implies, in addition to the fact that is present in the Constitution, the development of the tourism sector specifically. All that is the economy and the productive links around tourism is a wider and more diverse sector than even the oil sector.
Less pollutant, the industry without chimneys, as it has been called.
That's right, the industry without chimneys. But this industry without chimneys requires urgently to really talk about a national tourism policy with international vision of receptive tourism, the need for all who are involved in the chain to speak and manage foreign languages as a tool to make it real and more attractive to tourism. And then there we will see towards the tourist sector with the use of foreign languages to understand that, for example, Russians, Belarusians, Ukrainians, Kazakhstans, the Russian, to call them in some way will come. And Venezuela's appeal is its beaches, its forests and savannas.
And its people.
And its people in the first place, but the tourist attraction. Now, when we talk about the Arab-speaking countries, we're talking about 22 countries, 12 in the Middle East and 10 in Africa of North Africa. The attraction for them in Venezuela is precisely water sources, fresh water sources. Then they will come to Venezuela, not to go to their beaches, but to go to the areas of the country where, in addition to a cold climate, we also have the savannas, the Amazon. All the sources of fresh water are the main tourist attraction.
Y todas las fuentes, las sabanas, el Amazonas, las fuentes de agua dulce son el principal atractivo turístico.
See how this multipolar and pluricentric new world, thanks to the handling of foreign languages, not only Russian, Russian is the flag of the Pushkin Institute.
That's right.
However, since the movement of international solidarity and friendship of the people, the Mirandinos Circle, evoking Francisco de Miranda, we are promoting this vision of foreign languages, of the need in Venezuela to manage foreign languages. They are fundamental. We need to stop being crippled.
Tenemos en este momento muletas. Somos lisiados comunicacionales, todos.
We have right now crutches. We are crippled communicatively speaking, all Venezuelans. And that is where the intervention of the state, with a constitutional rank in addition, makes the incorporation of the languages as an instrument along with the internet and the information technology, not only to achieve participatory and leading democracy in this new multipolar and pluricentric world, but also to achieve the effective national and international productive incorporation of Venezuelans. Then there we are orientated to the Venezuelan state and the oil industry, military, and mainly these three big tourist sectors can be assumed as a major national program of popularization, which is the Pushkin Institute, as a private initiative, is a non-profit foundation under the principle of financial self-sustainability, has been promoting for 6 years popularization of the Russian language. At a very accessible cost to all citizens, we form children from age 3 to older adults. We have had students up to 83 years old. So we're not just talking about training professionals, but we're forming even children and adolescents, young people who are in full preparatory period to be able to move to the university sector, but also the professionals can incorporate to the national and international production apparatus from a perspective where the Russian language allows them. It is a fundamental tool, differentiating in addition in the development of the professional activity.
You mentioned the name of Francisco de Miranda, and practically the personality of Francisco de Miranda conjugated a model personality, right? Illustrated, we prepared a person with a multicultural base, but also a brave defender of his homeland.
Es correcto. Sí, es nuestro ícono, es nuestro héroe.
That's right. Yes, he is our icon. He is our Venezuelan hero. I definitely think Venezuela has a historical mission in the world. 200 years ago, Francisco de Miranda traveled the world in search of precisely political, economic, financial, and military support of other foreign powers for the time to come to liberate Venezuela from an empire at the moment, the Spanish Empire. And then the fact allowed Miranda to know the world, but in turn he was the first great globalizer of Venezuela to America, Europe, Africa, and well, Euroasia. For us, the Pushkin Institute has already marked Eurasia at that time. Eurasia comprised 3 continents, the Great Russian Empire, with Catherine the Great. Then today we see that Miranda, we saw it reflected in Chavez. Chavez, the 15th of May of the year 2001, marked a milestone in history, and as well as Miranda at the time, was the first globalizer of Venezuela and the world, our universal citizen. President Hugo Chavez produces the first meeting between Venezuela and Russia when he meets President Putin for the first time in the year 2001. And then we say that the new multipolar and pluricentric world is born. That visit, that vision of Chavez, not only for the countries, first of all, of Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa, Europe too, but in addition to that, Asia with China, then expanded the vision of Miranda to the whole world.
hacia todo el mundo,
incorporating what we are talking about today as Afro-Eurasia, incorporating to this new multipolar and pluricentric world. So it's extremely important what we're talking, in addition to a president, Nicolás Maduro, who accompanied President Chavez in that vision and was growing together with him in that great vision of a multipolar and pluricentric world, the new world that Chavez was talking about in the year 2012.
And President Maduro has become the doer of those plans, those ideas. He put them into practice.
Put them into practice, as I commented.
As at the time Bolivar made with the ideas of Miranda.
Exactly the same. Then we're seeing a Nicolás Maduro evoking our great liberator Simón Bolívar, and at this time in Venezuela, he's producing the great admirable campaign of the 21st century. We can say that President Nicolás Maduro is leading the admirable campaign of the 21st century as led by Simón Bolívar, our great liberator, the liberator of all these Latin American nations that we saw under time integrated, and we see them now integrated in the ALBA TCP and in UNASUR. In some way, these current mechanisms whose great driver was President Chavez. Then we see Nicolás Maduro driving the great campaign admirable 21st century.
And in the midst of that impulse, President Maduro, let us say that at an international level, he's not alone. I ask, is it fortuitous, is it causal that of the very first personalities to convey their congratulations for being re-elected by the Venezuelan people, we have the names of Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish president?
No es casual, y estamos hablando también de la importancia que tiene.
It is not accidental, and we are also talking about the importance of understanding that the whole world is being debated in two models, capitalism and socialism.
For you, what does capitalism symbolize, and what is socialism for you?
For me, capitalism symbolizes an exclusion. Racism is a form of exclusion. It is a class struggle of the owners of the valley in Venezuela.
For the international audience, how would you translate the owners of the valley?
The great riches of the world in the hands of a few.
At the time, they were the owners of Caracas.
At the time, they were the owners of Caracas. So the world is being debated in these two positions, and it's no wonder that President Nicolás Maduro, following the example as Vladimir Putin did in the year 2014, the example of a dignified people like the Russian people, the dignity of Russian people, the dignity of a great world leader or President Putin with dignity against sanctions, against sanctioning countries, came in the first place to Latin America, is that Chavez opened the reunion between Russia and Latin America. Chavez did at the time and came to Latin America, Asia, China, India, precisely with dignity to protect the people, to guarantee the security and food sovereignty of its territory and its citizens. With that example, with that same strength of Russia's hand by the hand of Turkey and the hands of the allied countries that are also of the sanctioned group, we call it the Club of the Sanctioned. We're standing from the struggle to reconstruct, to defend the Bolivarian revolution, to defend the socialist model, the humanist model. This great navigation chart that began our Commander Chavez and left it there. He didn't leave us alone. He left it there, and Nicolás Maduro already, we can't leave aside the warning that Venezuela has suffered for the physical departure of the commander. But it's time to move forward and protect our citizens, protect our territory, and to defend our national sovereignty and our position in the world.
as the Bolivarian government has been doing. Professor, thank you very much for sharing your opinion after Israel English.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Always at your service.
Thank you very much.
On social integration and the formation of a human being remembered through the learning of foreign languages and cultures here in Venezuela, I have been talking with Professor Rosalba Bue, principal of the Pushkin Institute. Thank you very much. I am Ray Gomez, and this is from Caracas.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. A team of journalists in 25 locations around the world